This is week 197 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I'm Anna Belokur, reporting to you from Kyiv, and I'll be taking you through the top stories from Ukraine this week. This was not the week that peace negotiations finally brought about peace. After much controversy around the new America-backed proposal that reportedly came straight from the Kremlin, meetings between various allies and adversaries this week have done little to change the status quo. On Tuesday, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, traveled to Moscow to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin and his aides in an attempt to come to an agreement over a revised version of the plan. But the 5-hour-long talks ended without a breakthrough. A Kremlin spokesperson described the meeting as very useful, constructive, and highly substantive, but openly acknowledged that no compromise version of a peace settlement has been found. Moscow signaled that while some aspects of the revised proposal were acceptable to them, others were not. Putin's demand that Ukraine vacate parts of its own territory that it currently holds remains unaltered. Trump, who continues to posit ending Russia's war as a defining challenge of his presidency, described Witkoff's experience in Moscow as reasonably good, but claimed that it takes two to tango, which no one really understood. Trump also stated that he believes Putin wants an end to the war, even as Moscow's words diverge ever further from its actions on the battlefield. Potential plans for Witkoff to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Europe after his visit to Moscow were canned, with senior Ukrainian official Rustem Umerov traveling to Miami instead to meet with American officials, indicating that whatever the outcome of the week's negotiations, they aren't ready to be worked out at the highest level yet. Zelensky and European leaders shared concerns over Washington's next steps, expecting new pressure on Ukraine to accept a Moscow revised plan, as the Kyiv Independent learned from a leaked phone call transcript. Despite the diplomatic engagement, there wasn't exactly diplomatic progress. If anything, these mediatory talks that lead nowhere underscore just how irreconcilable the two sides' demands are. The version of the plan revised together with Ukraine won't be accepted by Russia, and one that's tailored back to Moscow's specifications will be unacceptable to Ukraine. Moscow has tied ceasefire prospects to Ukrainian withdrawal from territory and restrictions on Ukrainian security policies, propositions that Kyiv knows will only set the stage for re-invasion. It's also worth noting that against the backdrop of these talks, Russia has continued to launch air attacks across all of Ukraine. Last weekend, we had a multi-hour missile attack here in Kyiv. Officials from the United Kingdom, Estonia, and other European nations have chastised the Kremlin this week for wasting the world's time and continuing aggression even amid negotiations. And while it's nice to show solidarity, these words don't yet do much in the face of the unsolvable riddle of how this war will end or be ended. As noted by many officials in discussions of why the recent peace plan is a non-starter, there is no sign that Russia is gearing up for a ceasefire. Instead, they're building military infrastructure and expanding illegal mobilization in the territories of Ukraine that they currently occupy. This means that thousands of Ukrainians are being forced into a war against Ukraine in real time, while others are living in extreme danger amidst the fighting. So as such, this fall has seen an influx of people escaping occupied Ukraine through Belarus to arrive at one of the last border crossings into free Ukraine. My colleagues went to the Belarusian border to see the only remaining checkpoint connecting Ukraine and the so-called Russian world.
Nearly 4 years ago, Russia sent its troops raging over the border from Belarus to Ukraine. Once, people could cross freely. Now this border is a constant threat of another attack. Right now we are at the last and the only humanitarian corridor which still connects Ukraine and the Russian world. This is also one of the few routes for Ukrainians escaping Russian-occupied territories to reach Ukrainian-controlled land. And lately, it's been getting busier. So we are here to meet people fleeing Russian occupation, to find out what is getting them here right now after spending almost 4 years there.
Якщо в них є можливість їхати вже, їм якраз 2 місяці не вистачає. Зараз вона підійде.
А який зараз потік людей у вас? Чи збільшився?
Дуже багато, до 100 людей кожного дня, 70-80. От в основному з місяць, так якби часу, це вже масово Херсонщина, окупований Херсон. Кажуть, що дуже гаряче.
Дуже гаряче?
Дуже гаряче там. І от люди вже кажуть, нема сили, вже виїжджають, тому що вже не можуть там перебувати. Дуже їх ущільнюють у всьому. От тільки що ви ж бачили, мама, дитина-інвалід, молода дівчина, мама теж погано ходить. Допомогли волонтери наші, знайшли житло, визвали Червоний Хрест, евакуювали. Таких історій тисячі, а прям щоб... Ми стараємося не запам'ятовувати.
Щоб не було так?
Да, щоб не робота роботою, а...
Це ж складно так.
Да, це складно.
Вас вітає Україна. Да, заскучилися за цими словами?
4 роки не були.
4 роки? Я координатор відповідальний за організаційні питання вивіз людей до Ковеля, безпечності розміщення, довіз, і щось людям підсказати. Я скажу, що досить, і за 3 роки тут історії таких, знаєте, що навіть їде чоловік і каже, в один момент я поїхав на рибалку, приїжджаю з рибалки, нема нікого, ні дочки, ні жінки, нікого. Нема, каже, навіть щось зібрати і піти похоронити. Тому що кап прилетів і нема ні хати, ні гаража, нічого, ні машини, все. І він їде, єлі тримається, я не знаю, як в таких ситуаціях. Він каже, нема ні костюмашок, нічого, щоб зібрати, я вже так говорю. То це вже як жилетка, яка вбирає всі сльози. Тут я за 100 кілометрів до Ковеля, я вислухаю все вислухаю. І вони вже там далі говорять більше, тут нічого не говорять. Там далі вони вже починають говорити, коли вони бачать вже, діти йдуть в школу, магазини працюють, хтось їде велосипедом. Все вони вже це бачать і в них трошки відтає серце.
For our 4th birthday, we set a goal to reach 25,000 members before the end of 2025. And in less than a month, we've already reached it thanks to readers and viewers like you. To everyone who's part of our now 25K plus community, thank you for your support. And if you're not in our community and would like to join us, supporting independent journalism in Ukraine while enjoying some cool perks, there will be a link to our membership page in the description below. Thank you also to everyone who gives directly via YouTube. Your donations go directly towards supporting shows like this. Russia claims full control over Pokrovsk. Ukraine denies it. The controversy lies less, however, in the facts, and more in the way it's documented. But either way, the scale has tipped irrevocably in Russia's favor. Mapping sources show that the city is overrun by Russian forces, even as Ukraine claims to still have some units active in the city's northern districts, engaging in street-by-street combat to blunt the Russian advance. Still, the Russian Defense Ministry published photos of its soldiers standing in the city center, holding up the Russian flag. The fact that the capture of the city can be contested so heavily illustrates the ambiguity of mapping the exact location of the front line at any given moment. In the digital age, the front line is often geolocated through a combination of open sources like social media and satellite imagery, as well as real-time updates from sources on the ground, which can provide unprecedented speed of information, especially when you think about how news traveled in previous wars, but it can also paint an incomplete picture of what's happening. When one side claims a victory or a loss, it can be denied by the other side because there's this gray zone of potential untruth between showing a flag being raised on social media and holding a city in entirety. Just south of Pokrovsk lies the smaller city of Myrnohrad, whose fate has become tightly intertwined with the larger push in the area. Senior NATO assessments have indicated that Myrnohrad is largely surrounded, with its defenders increasingly dependent on aerial resupply. The only remaining corridors connecting it to wider Ukrainian lines are narrow and exposed, putting Ukrainian units under threat of potential encirclement. Ukrainian brigades on the southern and eastern flanks have managed to hold key positions, but Russian infiltration groups are active within Mirnohrad itself. Like I've said about Pokrovsk for weeks, at this point, it's only a matter of time. Pokrovsk has joined Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and so many other towns as the site of fierce, months-long battles preceding capture by Russia. The loss of the city marks another significant step in Russia's quest to occupy all of Donetsk Oblast and places a whole new range of towns and cities within its crosshairs. This caps off a year of loss for Ukraine on the battlefield, one in which never before threatened regions have come under fire, where previously liberated towns have once again faced occupation, and stalled and withheld aid keeps translating directly to lost lives.
After being injured, many soldiers struggle to find their own place again. This is where adaptive sports can make a real difference. We are at the hard competition in Kyiv, organized by the Come Back Alive charity fund. Nearly 400 veterans took part in 9 different sports throughout the week, competing in both team and individual events. The Ukrainian word "hard" means tempering in English, reflecting the core purpose of this competition. Organizers say that this competition is not about winning medals, but that's of course always rewarding. The main goal is to help veterans be better understood, support their rehabilitation, and assist them as they transit back from the front line.
Саме гард, це, умовно кажучи, в такому форматі вперше. 7 днів, умовно кажучи, адаптивного спорту в колі своїх ветеранів. Найбільша кількість, ну дійсно велике. Тому це є звичайний рівень. Чи міг я уявити, що я колись буду грати там в регбі на кріслах колісних? Та ні. І спробувати там той самий біатлон і всі інші штуки. Ні. І оце можливість дає дійсно. Я ніколи не був професійним спортсменом. Але тут я розумію, чи я стаю це, пробую, деякі люди цього уявити по телеку, дивилися ці олімпіади і дивили інші види спорту. А тут є можливість це все спробувати, дійсно дуже важливо почати. У мене був досвід біатлону зимового, а це от схоже на стадіоні зі стрільбою. І це для мене свідомий мій вибір, бо в мене порушення, втрата зору, і для мене це своя боротьба. Ось, брати ті види спорту, де треба щось більш чіткіше цілитись, це для себе черговий виклик, тому як не скористатися цим.
Це також лежить в нашій стратегії на майбутніх кілька років – створювати можливості для заняття адаптивними видами спорту і стимулювати необхідність і розвиток створення таких місць. Тому що коли учасники приїжджають на такого масштабу і якості події, вони бачать і розуміють, як це може бути. Оцей дух братерства, єднання одним з одним, обмін досвідом, підтримка одне одного. Вони відчувають цей адреналін і кайф від процесу, тому що спорт – це максимально потужний інструмент, який позитивно впливає на ментальне і фізичне здоров'я.
For our North American supporters, I have a quick reminder. The Kyiv Independent's first ever live event will be held this coming Tuesday in New York City. The program will include personal accounts by our staff, visual storytelling, and a silent auction whose proceeds will go towards supporting the work of our War Crimes Investigations Unit. You can learn more and reserve a spot at the link in the description below.
Hi everyone, I'm Luca. I'm the economics reporter here at the Kyiv Independent. This week we have a question from Ilari, and Ilari asks, is there a way to support the pro-Ukraine lobby in Belgium? So thank you, Ilari, for the question. Ilari is referring to the frozen Russian assets. Now, you've probably heard a lot about this in the last few weeks. To give everyone a bit of context, when Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, approximately $300 billion of Russia's central bank reserves, which it was holding in countries all across the world, were frozen in place by sanctions. You had some cash in Japan, in Canada, in the European Union, all frozen in place, so the Russian central bank could no longer access it. Now, most of those were actually held in Belgium at a financial institution called Euroclear. And this money, for about 3 years, almost 4 years now, has just been sitting there. In September 2025, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced a reparations loan initiative. Now, this is an idea to lend this money to Ukraine. And this would be a loan of up to about 210 billion euros, which is the total amount of Russian central bank reserves within the European Union. And the reason that this all came about is because Ukraine's financial situation is getting urgent. Ukraine's going to run out of money by mid-2026 without additional finance. And so European leaders, without the aid which the US is no longer giving to Ukraine, are racing to find a solution. The reparations loan has become the way of funding Ukraine that European leaders are really banking on. Now, the problem is that most of the cash within the European Union is held in Belgium, and Belgium is not on board. As of today, we're recording this on Friday, Bart de Wever, the Belgian Prime Minister, is staunchly opposed to the plan. I mean, he cites legal and financial risks. Now, there is technically a way to get around Belgium. The European Union doesn't necessarily need his vote in a crucial conference, which is going to happen on the 18th to 19th of December. But it would, in any political union, always be better to get your political allies and the people. It would always be better to get your allies on board with the plan. So that's the context. But to Ilari's question, is there a way to support the pro-Ukraine lobby in Belgium, which is really pushing for Bart de Wever and the Belgian government to get on board with this plan? Now, I'm not an expert on how to help, but I've spoken to several people who are, and one of those people is Olena Kuzhin. She is a member of Ukrainian civil society who lives in Brussels, and she's here with us to tell you how you can help support the pro-Ukraine lobby in Belgium and get them on board with the reparations loan idea.
So you can help our effort to unblock the reparation loan for Ukraine in just 6 simple steps. Number 1, you can amplify the message on social media. Make a post calling on Belgium to unblock the reparation loan and put Ukrainians' life over profit. You can use hashtags like Make Russia Pay and Unblock Reparation Loan and tag Prime Minister and MPs from the coalition to increase visibility. You can sign the petition, adding your name to the petition addressed to the Prime Minister and the Belgian government, urging them to unblock the loan to support Ukraine. Contact Belgian decision makers, writing to a member of a parliament or directly to the Prime Minister, asking them to show leadership for European and Belgian security and support the loan. For extra impact, you can also share it on social media using the tags and hashtags. You can mobilize civil society organizations. If you are affiliated to a Belgian NGO or organization, you can sign our joint letter urging the government to unblock the loan. You can join our protest on the 12th December, showing your support in front of the European Council at 10 o'clock on 12th December on Friday, and help us share the event widely on social media and among your friends. And finally, you can pitch in to support our advocacy efforts and demonstrations by sending a donation via PayPal, and every contribution matters to help us be the voice of Ukraine in Belgium and Brussels.
That's all for this week. We'll be back next Sunday with more news from Ukraine. If you appreciated this video, please consider becoming a member of the Kyiv Independent community. It's thanks to viewers like you that we can do this work, and we're so grateful for your support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.